Hi, and welcome to Classical Stuff You Should Know, a podcast about old stuff put on by old guys.
Yep. So old. Hello.
Soup's old.
Yep.
Yeah.
Maybe we just feel that way because we're around high school students all the time.
That's a big part of it.
Yeah.
For sure.
Yeah,
That's us.
There was a time when I knew all the memes.
Oh gosh.
And then there was a time when I cared to know all the memes. And I'm in that period of
You're
life
past that?
now where I can't be bothered.
We did throwback television shows as one of our days of homecoming this year, and I didn't even know them. Usually I know them, but I've never watched them. This year I didn't even know them because
you
they
still
were
dressed up, didn't you?
I just furiously watched YouTube clips of it to find someone who was wearing an outfit of something that I already owned.
Good. I'm so
Me
sorry.
too.
Yeah.
I'm going to be a cowboy because I already own a flannel.
Is that really what you did? Mm-hmm. That's good.
But we had paid our dues in the earlier days of
how that
homecoming week. Well, we had shown up. Yes, we had, anyway.
Anyway, we are three educators. We all work at a school called Veritas Academy in Austin, Texas. We all enjoy our jobs. We all really care about education, about the classical world, about the human soul, and we want to bring that broad liberal education to the masses, right? Education should be available to you if you want it, and we think that the classical way is the best way to get that broad Western education.
It was the way that the educated were taught for centuries.
Yep. And we're just trying to bring it back in a way that's more palatable than sometimes you might otherwise receive it.
That's right.
Yeah. So a nice, easy, fun way to learn cool stuff. That's what we're about. So my name is AJ Hannenberg. I teach 9th grade and 12th grade English along with co-teaching thesis class with Mr. Donaldson over here.
Fellas.
Boys. Fellas.
Yeah. Hello.
Oh, that's just a Canadian greeting.
Is it really?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I didn't know what was happening right there.
That's fine.
I was so confused.
Yeah.
I clearly don't
It's-
spend enough
it's-
time.
He was just naming groups of people.
like, that's so strange. I don't
Boys and
understand.
fellas.
It's just an interjection that is used as an informal greeting.
Fair.
Boys.
Yeah. And then we also have with us Mr. Thomas Magby.
Hello.
And he is the ombudsman of fun.
Ombudsman of
he
fun.
is-
Dean of Student Life.
If there is ever fun, it has been cooked up in that mind of Thomas Magby. If ever fun happens to happen on this campus, it is because Magby orchestrated it, pulled the strings behind the scenes for that fun to happen. He tilled the soil that allowed the fun to sprout and grow.
Graham,
Right,
is,
we're getting-
Graham is reading straight from my job description. So thank you. Much appreciated.
We're getting pretty windy here, being kind of, there's a lot of hot air. So we're going to send it over to Magby for some more.
No, actually, I'm going to send it back to Graham for even more.
And I am sending it back to AJ. What are we talking about today, AJ? No, I was
Wait,
kidding.
that's not fair. I did my episode.
I know, this
You
one's
did.
on me.
This is Graham's
Oh,
episode.
really? It's
Yes.
Graham's episode? I
Yeah.
thought I was very confused about the ordering here. All right.
all
I apologize, Ms. Thomas, and I especially apologize to you, Graham.
So today, gentlemen, we don't have any food in front of us, although I feel like we should because, AJ has some popcorn. Because we are going to be talking about feasting. We are going to be talking about getting our heads chopped off.
What?
And we're going to be talking...
Which I regularly do at feasts.
And we're going to be talking about just what do you do when you're in a game that you can't win. Today we're going to be talking about a book called Sir Gawain and the Green Knight. It is a book of King Arthur's court. Nobody knows who wrote it, but whoever wrote it was pretty familiar with the Midlands and the north of England. And that's all we got. So we're just going to basically just go through the story a little bit, and then I have I have a theory about the book in that the book has this a structure to it that mirrors the tripartite soul, and I will present my theory to you both for your scrutiny. But first, let's talk a little bit about the book. So the book is about young King Arthur's court, and it is Christmas time, and all the bros are eating and drinking and making merry, and it is early King Arthur's court. They have no beards. They are young. They're maybe a little headstrong. And it's Christmas, and since they're boys, fellas. And since it's Christmas and in Camelot, they are doing what everyone does in Christmas. They are eating, they are drinking, they are playing games, they are jousting, and they are playing some kind of like white elephant game that involves kissing.
What?
So there's the lords and ladies there, and there's some kind of game that involves that. It's unclear, but if you win or if you lose, there's some sort of kiss that you have to do. You have to go and embrace the lady, and everyone kind of laughs at you.
Spin the mead?
Yes, spin the mead,
I believe,
exactly.
yes.
think of mistletoe, right? Like mistletoe came from the Middle Ages, and if you stand underneath mistletoe in a doorway with a fair young lass, you have to embrace her and give her a smooch.
They needed a lot of excuses to make out back then. I think we're a little more free with it.
There's some kissing games going on in Camelot, and I think it's just to highlight the youthfulness of the court. Arthur is sitting high on the dais, and he is full of mirth and enjoyment, and he wants some kind of game or some kind of story to happen before everyone can sit down and eat. When lo and behold, the door gets kicked in, cold air rushes into the hall of Camelot, and in rides a man, a mountain of a man. His name is not Thomas.
I wish.
But it is a mountain of a man, completely green, not just dressed in green, but himself green. His skin is green, his hair is green, his horse is green. Like, it's almost as if he dyed his horse's hair. And he comes in and he's holding a giant axe. And we actually, in my English class, did the math. We sort of figured out how much, because they talk about the axe in, I don't know, they give some kind of unit of measurement, and we tried to figure out what that was. Turns out the axe is 4 feet high. So the handle is 4 feet. And then you have this giant axe head. So he comes in with this giant 4-foot-long axe and a holly bush branch.
This is how I dress up to give presents to my nephews.
Yes. So
And you kick in the door when you
kick
do
in
it
the
too?
door.
Great.
Merry Christmas!
So he comes in with his giant axe and this holly branch, and he's not wearing armor, so he's not, even though he's brandishing a weapon, he's not here to throw down. And he comes in, everyone sort of shuts up, and the music stops playing, and there's a record scratch, and everyone looks over at this Green Knight. And he comes in and he basically insults the men of Camelot. And he says, he makes fun of them. He calls them beardless boys. He says, "Is this how you greet a stranger without any words of welcome?" And then Arthur sort of collects himself and he's like, "Of course, you are most welcome to come, sit, eat, and let's have some food and some wine, and then you can tell me why you're here." And he's like, "Nope."
And why you're green.
Right.
And why you're green. He's like, "Nope, I am not here to tell you to enjoy food with you. I'm here to challenge you. I have a giant axe. And what we're going to do, fellas, is we're going to play a game of shot for shot. Did you guys ever play shot for shot when you were kids?
No. What?
It's a game where...
you take a giant axe and hit each other?
No. It's like you punch the guy in the arm, and he punches you in the arm, and you punch him in the ear, and you go back and
okay.
forth until someone says mercy or
Yes,
uncle.
sure, yes.
Okay.
Yeah, sure.
So he's basically saying we're going to play this kind of game. You're going to take this axe, and I'm going to let you take one good swing at my neck. I'll even bend down. You can take... And if you can do that, in 1 year, I get to do the same to you. And there's sort of this murmur in the court, and nobody's...
Doesn't he also kind of imply that if they don't take it, they're a bunch of cowards?
Yeah. And so no one really says anything. Then he insults them and calls them beardless boys, and he says, he insults their honor. Let's see if I can even get the actual thing that he says, because it's pretty awesome what he says. So no one really knows what to do. He says, "So here is the house of Arthur," he scoffed, "whose virtues reverberate across vast realms. Where's the fortitude and fearlessness you're so famous for? And the breathtaking bravery and the big mouth bragging? The towering reputation of the Round Table, skittered and scuppered by a stranger. What a scandal." And so he makes fun of them, and then Arthur is essentially like, "Oh, I'll play your game." And he gets down,
So it works.
so he's going to get down, he's going to play this game, and Guinevere has like warning bells go off in her mind, and she's like, something's not right. And she kind of gives a anger, a hesitant and scared look to Gawain, who is Arthur's nephew, one of these young knights. And Gawain's like, "I gotcha." And then he's like, "My lord, perhaps I should take the game in your stead." And Gawain has to be careful here, because he could just insult Arthur and say, "I'll do this in your stead." But Gawain's being pretty smart. And he says, "I am the weakest of the knights. I'm the smallest. And if I die, my loss of life will not be hard for Camelot. And then, consequently, if I win, although Gawain doesn't say this, if I win, like, the weakest knight just won this game,
right.
How awesome is Camelot?" So he kind of gets Arthur out of a sticky situation, and I think Gawain sort of senses that there's something devious going on with the man completely dressed in green. But the game, on the face of it, seems to be the knight is saying that these boys are too young to lift his giant axe. And if they can lift the axe, then he gets his head chopped off and they win the game. That seems to be on the face of it what this game is. So Gawain's like, "I'll do this." So the Green Knight gets off. He moves his hair from the nape of his neck. Gawain takes the axe, lifts it up to the heavens, brings it down, cleaves the guy's head straight off, digs the axe into the cobblestones, and it makes a big clang sound. And the guy's head rolls on the ground, and it rolls past Lady's feet, and they scream and yell and kick it as it goes by.
And then Lancelot goes, woo!
Yeah, everyone's just like, blah!
Because you know Lancelot.
This little head rolls by, and they sort of kick it under the feet.
So the game ends.
The game ends. But then the Green Knight does not fall down and die.
What?
This headless man walks over, picks up the head from the ground, holds it aloft, turns the face towards King Arthur. Its eyes open, and it's like, I'll see you in a year. Gets on his horse and rides off. And everyone's like,
that's bad.
Ah, dang it. And then Arthur's like, that was really cool. And then they go and they eat and they drink and they make merry, and it's Christmas time. Meanwhile, Gawain's like, aw, that's not fair.
Right. It's not fair.
I can't do that.
Yeah.
This is the reverse.
So now Gawain is honor bound to go seek out this Green Knight. The Green Knight gives him a little, like, you'll find me. But Gawain's like, how am I going to find you? And he's like, oh, my name's the Green Knight. I live at the Green Chapel. Just ask around. You'll find me. Bye. And then off he goes.
Yeah.
And then Gawain gets, it's a year later, and he gets all kitted out, and it's like November 1st. It's All Saints' Day, because this game's going to take place around Christmas time. So he gets all kitted out, and he gets in his horse, and he gives these tearful goodbyes to everybody in Camelot.
Because he's probably a dead man.
He's probably a dead man. He can't, if small Gawain can cut this guy's head off, this giant Green Knight's definitely going to cut Gawain's head off.
And he can't wuss out, because then he wussed out and he loses all faith and honor, and he can't exist anymore in his world.
That's right.
He's honor bound to go do this.
So his choices are death or dishonor, and he's not going to choose dishonor. So Gawain is going to have to go die. So he's got this game that he cannot. You can't win. It was a trick. You can't win this game. The only way to win this game is to not play, but not play is dishonorable. So the only result is death. So Gawain rides off to his death, and everyone cries as he leaves. And Gawain and his horse Gringolet go off into the woods looking for this Green Knight. Gawain rides around for a little bit. He has a couple of adventures. He kills a couple of wolves, and there's a giant that he escapes from, and there's some other creature in there that they don't even bother translating it from the Old English to the New English because we don't really know what it is. I think it's some sort of mountain animal. Anyway, it's kind of a scary mountain animal. Anyway, so he rides around, and then it's Christmas Eve, and he's been sleeping in his armor. He's been outside in the cold, and he is really.
And it's in Britain.
It's in England.
And
it's cold.
That's a cloudy, rainy place.
And so he's just super bummed, and so it's Christmas Eve, and he prays to God. He prays to Jesus, and he prays to Mary, and he's like, I just want some place where I can spend Christmas Day, and I can go to church, I can go to Mass in a warm place. I don't have to do Mass outside, because the idea of spending Christmas by yourself in your armor, eating roots and frozen potatoes does not sound very exciting.
Dude, sweet potatoes are...
Not frozen.
True.
You ever tried them?
Frozen raw sweet potatoes? You know what? I have not, actually.
But dude, don't knock it.
Don't knock it till you try it. Well, anyway, maybe even if they are good, he's been eating them for weeks, so he wants something a little different.
3 weeks of frozen sweet potato raws. I imagine that's not the greatest.
So he goes around the corner, and he sees a castle, and he's like, oh, sweet, thanks, God, answer to prayer. And he rides up, and the guy... the little castle gate person says, yeah, come on in. And Gawain is in full, beautiful armor. They take lots of pages to describe how glorious his armor is. So Gawain, everyone, when you look at him, realize that Gawain is this gorgeous man. He's
a flowering example of manhood.
That's right.
It'd be like the modern, if he's got the new Yeezys.
Exactly. Yes. Riding in and rolling into this guy's house. Anyway, so he rolls in. The lord of this house comes down, and he is a worthy man. He is a big dude with a big red beard, and he welcomes Gawain, and he says, "You are more than welcome. Oh, here you're from Camelot. Awesome. I've always wanted to meet a knight from Camelot. You are more than welcome to stay at my house to spend Christmas." Gawain says, "I'm looking for the Green Knight and this Green Chapel." And the host is like, yeah. We'll figure that out later. It's Christmas, my dude. You're going to eat and drink with me. This is going to be awesome.
Cool.
And Gawain's like, great. They go to church. They sit together in church. The host becomes his fast friend. There's this giant feast of fish and delicious food. And Gawain's like, wow, I've never seen so much food. And the host is like, are you serious? this is our fast day.
Wow.
This is our fast feast.
Wow.
Yeah. He's like, you haven't even seen anything. This is our off day, basically.
It's crazy.
You know, if they're doing maybe what's that diet that you did? There's like 30 days of death or whatever it's called.
I did not do this, but Whole 30. I think
Yeah.
was the one. Yeah.
So anyway, I don't know. It's like, is there something on that diet where you don't eat you eat like a small meal?
I don't think it's the size of the meal. It's you cut certain foods out during Whole 30.
That sounds awful.
Are you thinking of the juice cleanse?
I'm just thinking of like any diet where you have like you have a day where you eat less. The host has basically said, this is our off day. We're eating less. And Gawain's like, holy crap. So it's lots of food, lots of wine. Gawain drinks a little too much, it says. And him and the host sort of get giddy together. They sort of laugh and get giddy, which is hilarious. Anyway, and then the host's wife is beautiful. And she wants to meet this knight at the round table, and she comes out, and she's resplendent in her glory, and she's very coy. And Gawain sees her at church, and the host's so the wife, she has a chaperone, or this little old lady that helps her out, basically like her lady in waiting. And she's this old crone, and she's kind of nasty looking. And there's this very hilarious scene where the author like juxtaposes the two. You have the beautiful lady, and you've got this old crone, and it says that like Gawain liked to look at the lady and not the old crone. But when he goes and introduces himself, he goes to the old lady first and introduces himself, kisses her hand, and then introduces himself to the lady. And she sort of is very coy. And then the lady loves talking to Gawain because Gawain is very well-mannered, and he can talk about high subjects. So you imagine that this poor lady in the middle of nowhere has no one to talk to except her husband, and no one to talk to at these Christmas feasts. It's probably very boring because if she, goes to her local farmer, she's like, hello, local farmer, how are you? And he's like, my cow sleeps in my house for warmth. And you're like,
you ever
okay.
seen a pig give birth?
Yeah, exactly.
Like, it's not.
So the lady seems to be very happy that somebody is here who can talk about things with her. And so Gawain entertains this lady all through dinner, and they have conversations about chivalry and knighthood and charity and all the things that knights are supposed to live and die for. And the lady is quite intrigued with these things. Okay. If you want to know more basic stuff about Christian knights, you can go back to listen to one of our earlier podcasts on Christian knights. But to suffice to say that the author of Sir Gawain the Green Knight and Christian knights in general, their highest calling was charity. That was what they were called to do. And not give money to the poor. That's kind of what we call charity nowadays. But charity was they were supposed to love without expectation. And by love, it means that they were supposed to serve people who had no ability to repay them. So if you were a knight, you were supposed to ride off and look for ways that you could help the unfortunate, and you would not expect any kind of thing in return except a good name. So in many ways, knights were kind of philosophers of love. Like they had to think of the world about how could they interject themselves into the world and spread charity and kind of live for charity. So in the story, it says that the lady loves to talk to Gawain about love. And it's not this romantic love. It's this idea of the knights going off and being these charitable men of honor. So Gawain is there. It's a great time. And then a couple days pass, and everyone goes home. And so it's just the host and the lady and whoever lives in the castle. And the host says, Gawain, I know you have a job to do, but let's hang out for a couple more days. You got a long time until New Year's Eve when you need to go play this game. Because he's told the host about the game. And he says, Gawain, I'm going to go on a hunt. And I propose a game. Because it's Christmas time, it's time to play games. The games involving gifts. This is a very something that we've already seen in Camelot at the beginning. And he says, I'm going to go with my bros. We're going to go hunt. And whatever I win on the hunt, I will bring back to you. And you can keep. And I want you to entertain my wife because she's all alone, bored in this house to tears. And it seems like she loves talking to you about things. And whatever, if she gives you any gifts or whatever sort of good conversation you have, I want you to give to me in return. So if you get anything while you're hanging out with my wife and everybody else in the castle, give to me.
So he's hoping maybe for some good chats?
Yeah, some good chats or just, stories or tales or anything. And whatever I win in the hunt, I will give to you. And at the end of the day, this will give us something to talk about when we eat. So it gives a little stakes to our day, and it gives me incentive to hunt, and it gives you incentive to talk to my wife and to not just sort of mope around. And so Gawain's like, that sounds awesome. What could go wrong?
Right. Well,
and of course, red flags everywhere.
Right.
And so Gawain says that this is great. Okay. We already have some parallels. If you are a teacher of this book or a reader of this book and you know the Odyssey, or if you know just sort of the story of the Odyssey and Troy, I highly suggest going through this book and looking for parallels, because we have a host with a bunch of big red hair, and he's got a gorgeous wife, and he has this hot young thing come into his house and entertaining his wife. Hindenburg, as the teacher of Greek literature, what story does this elicit?
That would
Red-haired
be
man? Yeah.
Menelaus and Helen, would it not?
Menelaus and Helen. In fact, at the very first line of Sir Gawain and the Green Knight starts with this. Once the siege and assault of Troy had ceased, when the city a smoke heap of cinders and ash, the traitor who contrived such betrayal there was tried for his treachery, the truest on earth. So Aeneas it was with his noble warriors, and it goes on to say how England was founded by a descendant of Rome. But it harkens back to Troy, and reminds the reader of the treachery and the betrayal of Troy and Paris, who took Helen, and because of taking Helen, destroyed Troy, this beautiful crown of order and human achievement and a good king. Well, now we've got Sir Gawain, and he is going to be in someone's house, and he is going to be with this beautiful lady. And is our Christian knight going to make the same mistakes that our pagan hero made and brought about the fall of Ilium, but brought about the fall of Troy? Is Gawain going to bring about the dishonor of Camelot because of his lack of discretion with the wife? Anyway, so there's all these other Odyssey parallels. Like there's this point where Gawain, after his travels, puts on clean clothes and comes out, and everyone's like, oh, dang, you look like a god. And Gawain's like, no, I'm just a knight. And it's clearly an Odyssey parallel to when Odysseus puts on fancy clothes after they find him in the woods. And everyone's like, ooh, you're someone important. Anyway, there's tons of these little Odyssey parallels. And to show that Gawain is a hero like these heroes. And I think the author is saying, but better. These Christian knights are better than these pagan heroes because they have the story is about moral virtue as opposed to face-smashing virtue, where you can fight. Anyway, so then Gawain, so the host goes off and he hunts a deer, and this poor little deer runs away, and there's this huge descriptive scene of the deer being chased, and the dogs tearing into the deers, but they're not killing the male deers; they're going after the does. And it says, like at the end of it, they have a mountain of deer, which is hilarious. They kill all these deer, and it is in the way that the chase is described. It is very martial. It is very noble. It is romantic, right? You're chasing the stag. I guess it's not a stag. You're chasing the doe through the woods, riding the horses with your spears. The language is very noble and glorious. It is the hunt of kings. It's chasing the stag. It's chasing the doe.
And at that point, killing that much deer wouldn't have made a dent in the amount of deer.
That's right. Yeah. So, meanwhile, then Gawain is sleeping in his little chamber, and he hears the door on latch, and the door creak open. And Gawain is a little startled because he's alone in his room, and he's in one of those beds that have the curtains around it. And so he peeks out of the curtains, and he looks, and he sees that the lady is sneaking into his chamber. And he goes, oh, crap. What could this mean? And Gawain realizes that he's in that position that lots of knights find themselves in. You are young and handsome and fight for truth and honor and beauty and goodness. and that makes
Ladies.
you and
Ladies like that.
you are deferential to ladies, and you hold all the ladies in the realm of high esteem, and that makes you an attractive figure. And this lady is coming in, and she is married to somebody who is noble in his own right, but you don't know what's going on. You don't know if this is a happy marriage. You don't know if there's an age difference. And Gawain's like, oh crap, I need to keep my wits about me. This could go real south real fast. So he pretends to be asleep. And
Great.
so he's pretending to be asleep, and then he hears the curtain open, and he feels the lady sit on his bed. And he's like, oh. So he pretends to wake up, and he sees the lady and immediately crosses himself. And he's like, oh, I didn't see you come in. And she says, Gawain, I have caught you. I've trapped you. You are my prisoner, is what it says. And very jokingly, I'm just trying to see what I've got. Yes, because the language is really important. She says, excuse me, good morning, Sir Gawain, said the graceful lady. You sleep so soundly, one might sidle in here. You're tricked and you're trapped. But let's make a truce, or I'll besiege you in your bed, and you'd better believe me. She giggled girlishly as she teased good Gawain. The man in bed said, good morning, ma'am. I'll contentedly attend whatever task you set, and in serving your desires, I seek your mercy, which seems my best plan in the circumstances. And he loaded his light-hearted words with laughter. But my gracious lady, if you grant me leave, will you pardon this prisoner and prompt him to rise? Then I'll quit these covers and pull on my clothes, and our words will flow more freely back and forth. Not so, beautiful sir, the sweet lady said. Bide in your bed, my own plan is better. I'll tuck in your covers corner to corner, then playfully parley with the man I have pinned. And then they go back and forth, and they chat a little bit about this. But have you noticed the kinds of like descriptors and adjectives, or even the little metaphor that the lady has used to describe the way that this interaction with the knight? What is it?
The war and prisoner?
That's right. I've besieged you. Gawain, I am the army that has broken into your fortress, and I've captured you, and now you're mine. And Gawain says, will you grant me mercy to go and rise so we can better have a discourse? And she says, no, I will parley with you here, my prisoner. So she's playing this little like military language game that I've captured you. And Gawain plays into it.
Oh, she seems so sketchy.
She seems a little sketchy. So Gawain gives into it. And then she goes and she continues to say, I've captured you, and you are the best knight. Surely nobody on earth realizes the prize that I have captured, because you are the best knight that has ever lived, from what I've heard, and you are worth far more than your weight in gold. If I am going to ransom you off, she kind of jokes, I would never ransom you off, because nobody could pay your ransom, and it is much better to have you as a prisoner than it is to have the money that it would cost to free you. And Gawain's like, so she's flattering his honor and his pride and his sort of his name. And Gawain sort of says, no, that is very kind of you to say, but in reality, you have a far better man than I in your home already. Your husband, remember him? So yes, you do not need a giant hoard of gold. You've already got a great man. You found far better, but I'm proud of the price you would pay from your purse, and will swear to serve you as my sovereign forever. Let Christ now know that Gawain is your knight. So he basically says, it's very flattering that you value me so high and that you would put such a high price on my head. I will be your man. You've captured me, and I will be your knight. So he's kind of playing this game of, I've been captured in battle, and now I'm going to serve you because of how nice you are to me. And she laughs, and she thinks this is hilarious. What a fun game. And then as she's leaving, she's like, wait, you're not Gawain. And he's like, why not? And he says, a knight so noble as Gawain would never have entertained a lady without asking for a kiss. And so he says, my lady, you are most right. And so he says, of course, I request an embrace. And she comes and she kisses him. And it's indeterminate where she kisses him, whether it's like a full-on kiss on the lips or if it's sort of like a comely kiss on the cheek. Whatever it is, Gawain's not cool with this whole situation, but he's also in this He can't be like, get away from me, Jezebel, right? Like
Right.
he's in somebody's house.
Right.
So he's kind of having to play this game. And so she comes and she kisses him, and then she leaves, and he immediately jumps out of his bed, puts on his clothes, and goes to church. And he goes to mass. Anyway, the Lord comes back and presents Gawain with the choicest venison cuts. And gives it to Gawain, and then the Lord says, "So, Gawain, what have you won this night?" And Gawain comes and kisses the Lord, and the Lord laughs uproariously and thinks this is hilarious, and he's like, "All right, we're doing this again tomorrow."
Wait, he's cool with this?
He's cool with this. He thinks it's hilarious.
That's
And
weird.
but yeah, so yes, so remember, kissing games were a thing at Christmas time.
I guess.
So yeah, it was a
Spin
little
the
strange.
mead, baby.
It's a little odd. Spin the mead. So day 2. The Lord goes off, and his hunt is not a beautiful, noble, glorious hunting the stag through the forest. It is a down-in-the-mud slugfest with a pig. He hunts a boar, and the boar refuses to die. Dogs are getting gored left and right. The arrows are bouncing off the pig. The pig at one point stops running, turns around, snorts at them, and everyone's like, "Whoa, I'm not going after this pig." And then at some point they chase the pig into a bog, and the pig gets stuck and has killed a bunch of dogs and has wounded a bunch of noblemen, and the pig is bloodied and angry. And the Lord gets off his horse and wades through the muck, takes out his lance, and lances the pig in the throat and kills the pig. So we don't have this glorious, noble hunt. We get this muddy affair of back and forth, where the pig is winning, and then the Lord is winning, and then the pig is winning, and then the pig is eventually unceremoniously gutted. Okay, so that's hunt number 2. Meanwhile, so the lady comes in, and Gawain into this chamber again, and Gawain is in bed, and this time he's awake, and the lady comes in, and she says, she approaches the curtains, parts them, and peeps in, at which Sir Gawain makes her welcome at once. And with prompt speech, she replies to the prince, sitting by his side and giggling sweetly, looking at him lovingly before launching her words. "If this is Gawain who greets me, I am galled that a man so dedicated to doing his duty cannot heed the first rule of honorable behavior, which has entered through one ear and exited the other. You have already lost what yesterday you learned in the truest lesson my tongue could teach." "What lesson?" asked the knight. "I know of none, though if discourtesy had occurred, then correct me, of course." "I encouraged you to kiss," the lady said kindly, "and to claim one quickly when one is requested, an act which ennobles any knight worth the name." And then he's like, "Okay, I didn't mean to offend. I dare not." So he says, "I dare not ask for kisses in case I'm refused," and that's kind of embarrassing. And then she says, "In truth," she told him, "you cannot be turned down. If someone were so snotty as to snub your advances, a man like you has the means of his muscles." She's like, "If someone doesn't want to kiss you, Gawain, you're big and strong, and you can get whatever kisses you want." And Gawain says, "Yes, by God, what you say holds good, but such heavy-handedness is frowned in my homeland." He's like, "We don't force ladies to kiss where I'm from." And then she comes in and she says that she wants to talk of love. "I would like to learn," said the noble lady, "and please find no offense. But how can it follow that a lord so lively and young in years, a champion in chivalry across the country, and in chivalry, the chief most aspect to choose, as all knight acknowledge, is loyalty and love?" And then she explains what sort of these tales are that she wants to learn about, of knights and ladies and Rome and chivalry and all these sorts of tales. She explains these kinds of tales. She says, "Yes, how can it follow that twice I have taken the seat at your side, yet you have not spoken the smallest syllable which belongs to love or anything like it? A knight so courteous and considerate in his service really ought to be eager to offer this pupil some lessons in love and to lead by example. Is he actually ignorant, this man of eminence, or does he deem me too dunce-like to hear of dalliances? I come to learn of love, and more, a lady all alone. Perform for me before my husband heads for home." Okay, so she's come in, and what's the sort of the language that she uses on this day?
Strength. Something about, well, at the beginning it's
Pupil and learner, right?
Pupil and learner. So that's the little story that she says. "I am a student, you are the teacher, you know more about love, I've come to learn about love." But then she also presents a little bit of a logical fallacy. I think it's equivocation or Hannenberg. What's where you misuse
It's equivocation.
words?
She uses a word to it's either just relying on the ambiguity of the word love, but she is using it in one sense and under the guise of it being used in another sense, which I think is equivocation.
That's
equivocation means using a word one way and then later using it a different way.
So she comes in and she says, "Hey, you knights, I hear you knights are all about love." And she means charity, and she explains it.
Yeah, so
and
it's
she's
equivocation.
and she's like, "I'm a lady all alone, so why don't you teach me about love?" And she don't mean charity. Right. So she's coming in and she equivocates on this word love. Knights are all about charity. Why don't you teach me about eros? Is kind of what she's implying. And Gawain defers, and he says, actually, you as a noble lady know far more, and also as a married lady, know far more about love than I can teach. I am but a humble servant to my king and to you, my lady. So he kind of doesn't engage in it, and he kind of unwinds the equivocation by saying, you know more about all aspects of love than I do. He doesn't engage in the fallacy. And so this second day, and so at the end of it, she kisses him again and leaves. Pardon me. So, and then off she goes, and immediately when she leaves, he throws off his bedclothes, throws on his regular clothes, and goes straight to church, and prays to God. The Lord comes home, and he gives him a big old piece of bacon. He gives him a giant pig. And Gawain's like, this is awesome. So he eats pig, and then he embraces the Lord twice. And the Lord's like, oh, this is hilarious, Gawain. This is so fun. Tomorrow. Gawain's like, you know what? I really got to get out of here.
Right.
I got to go find this green chapel.
The Lord's really not feeling very comfortable anymore.
But he doesn't want to say this. He doesn't want to be like, and like, your wife is coming on to me, because you could have like a Potiphar's wife situation. Like he's really, also in someone's house.
Is he totally sure that that's what's happening?
Exactly. It's a little ambiguous. He doesn't really know if the lady is just...
She's like leaving the door... She's not fully opening the door, but she's definitely leaving it open a crack where maybe she wants you to...
Yeah, she's leading him like, teach me about love, Gawain. And he's like, is she really coming on to me, or am I just imagining all this? It would be better if I just got out of here. And no one, we don't have to address this openly. I just gotta leave. The host is like, nah, man, the Green Chapel, I know where it is. It's just around the corner.
Oh, really?
I know all about it. You can be there in half a day's ride. Stay one more day. We'll play the game one more time. Gawain's like, fine. Okay. Third day. The Lord goes out, and the only thing that they can hunt is a fox. This little crafty fox, it runs around. The fox is terrified. The fox goes, is crafty, and he's hiding in trees, and he's hiding in bushes, and the dogs are chasing after him. The fox is basically hounded. The fox essentially gets hounded to death by the dogs. Wherever the fox goes, the dogs are there right behind him, nipping at the fox's heels. The fox gets no moment of peace, and the fox basically dies with a heart attack. Like, it just runs itself to death.
Yeah.
And everyone in the hunt's kind of disappointed. They get this one fox. They're like, man, this kind of sucks. All right. Meanwhile, at home, the lady puts on her most beautiful clothes. Her neck is bare. She puts jewels in her hair. She wears a low-cut top. Her back and shoulders are bare as she comes in. And she comes in to Gawain's chambers full of woogachakas, guns blazing, no ambiguity. She goes to Gawain.
Can you please define
full of woogachakas? Well, I mean, she is...
No, I think I get your meaning.
Yes. Well, how does... I believe what the author says is... Meanwhile, Gawain's having terrible nightmares about getting his head chopped off, because he's just terrified about going and dying in the Green Knight. And it says... so she comes in gorgeous and wearing... what you should probably, it's basically, she should be wearing more clothes. And it says, for that noble princess pushed him and pressed him, nudged him ever nearer to a limit where he needed to allow her love or impolitely reject it. He was careful to be courteous and avoid uncouthness, cautious that his conduct might be classed as sinful, and counted as betrayal by the keeper of the castle. I shall not succumb, he swore to himself. With affectionate laughter, he fenced and deflected all the loving phrases which leapt from her lips. So she basically comes in and leaves no room for imagination. She wants to make out with Gawain and more. And Gawain, at some point, has to refuse her. This is if her intentions were ambiguous, it is no longer ambiguous. She loves him and wants him, and he refuses her. And then she pouts. He's like, maybe, do you have a girlfriend back home? And he's like, nope. And she's like, so you're just going to leave? And he's like, yeah. And she's like, are you going to give me something to remember me by? And he's like, that's not really appropriate. No, I'm not. And I didn't really come with gifts for ladies. That wasn't really why I came on this quest. I'm coming on this quest to die. And then she says, can I give you something to remember me by? And he's like,
No.
okay. And she's like, how about this ring? And it's like a $bajillion ring. It's got jewels and diamonds and sapphires. And he's like, that's a bit much.
Not really my style.
Right.
It's a little.
I'm a rugged knight.
It's a little kind of heavy. And how do you explain that back home? This married lady gave me this ring. That's not an honorable thing.
Yeah.
And so she's like, all right, fine. How about this scarf that I'm wearing? And he's like, okay. And she's like, oh, by the way, this scarf, if you wear it, you will not die by any violent means.
Oh, that's useful.
And he's
I
like, huh?
I feel like that's a relic that could fetch a lot of money on the old market.
On the old relic market.
You know what I mean?
And Gawain's like, that's going to come in handy. Especially tomorrow.
I do think that this might be,
And she's like, okay, so I'll give you the scarf, but you got to promise me one thing. Don't tell my husband I gave it to you.
Oh.
And he's like, okay. And then he takes it, and she leaves, and he's like, hot dang,
I see where this is
I'm
going.
not going to die tomorrow.
But isn't he supposed to give it?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, he's
And
supposed to give it to
so
the...
Gawain is now in trouble, and he doesn't realize it, but Gawain has kind of double booked his honor. He's given his word twice.
Right.
He's told the Lord, I will give you whatever I win. And he's told the lady, I won't let the Lord know that you gave me your scarf.
And in bonus, isn't this a little bit of a cowardly act? The Green Knight didn't have a scarf that made him impervious.
Yeah, well,
to
he
the
also
blow.
had this
Ability
this
to-
fun game to pick his head up.
Right.
Yeah, which is cool, but still, doesn't it reveal a little bit of fear on
A little bit.
Sir
Gawain, I think, is seeing like an out. He's seeing like a trick that he can play on the Green Knight if the
Right.
Green Knight played a trick
But
on him.
I think that bespeaks of a little bit lower valor, don't you
Exactly.
think so?
I would-
mean,
yeah.
it seems like a smirch. It's a smirch. He's being besmirched.
Yes. So Gawain takes it and he's like, at least I don't have to die now.
Yeah.
And then he goes to the Lord, and the Lord's like, hey man, all I got you was this crappy fox. And he gives him the fox skin, or the fox fur, and then Gawain kisses him 3 times, and the Lord's like, that it? Gawain's like, yep.
Ooh.
And the Lord's like, all right, cool. And then they feast, and then the next day, Gawain is led to the Green Chapel, and he says goodbye to the lady and the Lord, and he's led to the Green Chapel. And when he gets there, he meets the Green Knight, and the Green Knight's like, are we doing this? And then Gawain's like, yep. Gawain takes off his helmet, leans his head forward. The Green Knight takes the axe on high.
Is he wearing the scarf at this point?
Gawain is wearing the scarf at this point.
Is it like around his waist?
Yeah,
or
it's around
like
his waist, or he should have wrapped it around his torso. It's a long scarf.
Okay.
And the Green Knight takes the aft aloft and lifts it high and brings it down, and Gawain flinches at the last moment. And the Green Knight's like, buddy, did you just flinch? I didn't flinch when you did this. Did I flinch when you did
Wow.
this? And Gawain's like, fine, I won't flinch this time. And Green Knight's like,
Poor
okay.
Gawain.
I know, he's just
Gawain,
toying with
yeah.
him.
I know.
So mean.
And so then the Green Knight comes, brings the axe down, and he brings it down and stops, and he goes, ah! And Gawain doesn't flinch. And the Green Knight's like, oh, yeah, boy. And he's like, okay, I see you. I see you not flinching. All right, this time it's coming for real. And then the Green Knight lifts the axe aloft. It comes down, and it slices Gawain's neck just a little bit. The Green Knight misses
just a
on
nick.
purpose and just nicks his neck, and the blood goes onto the white snow, and Gawain looks down and sees his blood and realizes he's still alive, jumps back, throws on his helmet, shrugs his shield from his shoulder, pulls out his sword, and he's like ready to fight.
He's like, that counts.
That counts. I took your hit. I don't have to take another one. If you want to fight me, let's do this thing.
I did it. It counts.
And then the Green Knight laughs, leans on his axe, and he says, the first night you were true, so I didn't hit you. The second night you were true, so I didn't hit you. But the third night, Gawain, you kept the green scarf that my wife gave you.
What?
And so he says, because you loved your life a little bit more. So the Green Knight is in fact the host, and
What?
he says.
Even though the host wasn't green.
The host wasn't green, so this is like a little
Some
magic
sort
trick,
of trickery.
some sort of trickery.
Yeah.
So the host basically tells Gawain, like, because you played this game, you didn't give in to my wife's advances, and the only reason why I hit you and made you bleed was because you loved your life more than death. What he says is, I sent her to test you, and in truth, it turns out you are by far the most faultless fellow on earth. As a pearl is more prized than a pea which is white, so by God is Gawain amongst gallant knights. You're a pearl in a big bowl of white peas. But a little thing more.
I mean, is it white? Is that kind of rare?
Yeah,
white pea?
I guess so.
Oh.
But a little thing more, it was loyalty that you lacked. Not because you're wicked or a womanizer or worse, but you loved your own life. So I blame you less. And Gawain is crushed.
I bet.
He says, a curse upon cowardness and covetousness. They breed villainy and vice and destroy all virtue. He says, my downfall and undoing. And then, and he's like, and he takes off the green girl and he throws it at the knight. And he's like, this was my downfall and undoing. You take it. And the host is like, dude, you're the best knight I've ever seen.
Oh, wow.
He says, you are amazing. My lady threw everything that she had at you, and the only way that you failed was because you didn't want to get your head chopped off in a game you couldn't win. He's like, that's pretty awesome. Camelot's knights are pretty great.
Especially if you're the worst one.
Especially if you're the worst one. He's like, come back to my house. My lady's eager to see you and hang out, and we can now like talk openly. And Gawain's like, yeah, I've had enough of your weird family.
I'm gonna go home.
He's like, I'm going to go home, but I'm going to wear this green belt as a sign of my failure. And the Green Knight's like, dude, don't be so hard on yourself. You're amazing. You were the greatest knight I've ever seen. And Gawain's like, I failed. And then he goes home and he tells Camelot this whole story. And Arthur laughs at him.
Oh, really?
Not like mockingly, but laughs at him in joy.
Right.
And Gawain's like really down on himself. And Arthur laughs. And I kind of read that as like, oh, Gawain, like stop, like this is a gift. This isn't something to be upset about.
Right.
And so Camelot decides that they will all wear green sashes around their arms and
That's
waists in solidarity with Gawain, and also because they realized that they can't be perfect, but they can be good. And this is kind of like the maturity lesson that Gawain learns. Like, you can't be perfect because you're going to be playing games where you can't win. The only way to be perfectly honorable is probably to go to a foolhardy death. But you can be good. You can be noble, and true men can but try is a refrain that comes in the book a lot. And so at the end, Camelot kind of has this more deeper understanding of what it means to be a Christian knight. It's that you should always be striving for goodness instead of really hold to the code of perfection, but know that you can't achieve perfection. And like Gawain received mercy from the Green Knight, he didn't get his head chopped off. We, as Christian knights, receive mercy in our imperfections. Christ died for us, but we still strive to be perfect knights. Okay, that's the story of Sir Gawain the Green Knight and kind of the moral at the end. But I want to talk about those 3 tests of the lady. Because my hypothesis is is that those 3 tests correspond to the tripartite soul. That the first, so the easiest one is probably the last one. The sexy lady comes and she throws herself at Gawain and Gawain refuses her, is testing what part of the tripartite soul? Oh, just as a recap. So the tripartite soul is the rational, so the part that thinks and commands, the spirited, the part that acts and has valor and courage, and then the appetitive, the parts that feels and has desires.
So it's appetitive.
Yeah, so clearly that last one is like she is testing his appetitive nature. Is he going to give in to sexual temptation? He says no. The second one, where she's talking about learning and speech and teach me I'm your pupil, and then she tries to trick him with a logical fallacy, seems to be testing his rational soul. Is he clever enough to realize that she's playing a game she's equivocating on love? And then the first one, she uses martial language of, I've pinned you, you're trapped, I've got you, I'm going to parlay, we're going to see how much your valor is worth on the valor market because you're my prisoner. Oh, wait, you're not Gawain, that can't be your name. Because if you were Gawain, you would have done this thing. And he says, well, I'll do that thing. And he kisses her. So it seems like she's sort of testing his valor, his name, and then using martial language of combat. Do you think this is a fair assessment of this story? I know Hannenberg hates this kind of thing.
Why do you hate this kind of thing?
I mean, we've talked about this before. I don't necessarily hate it. I'm skeptical without enough textual proof. And it seems like there's a lot going on there.
To me, the kickers are, why use those kinds of language?
Okay.
Why use those 2 games of I've trapped you, you're pinned, and teach me I'm your pupil, and then awooga chakas. Like, that seems to be... Guys, Maybe this is a technical argument
a technical
we're having,
term,
and
yeah.
you were laughing.
I apologize for my glee. I'm wondering if there's anything in the animals that could give credibility to that.
So that's the other thing is like the animals. The first one is like the way it's described. It's this noble hunt of like martial running through the woods.
Mm-hmm.
The second one, it's a I don't know. It's like a pig. Are pigs smart?
Yeah.
Are pigs rational souls?
Pigs are incredibly smart, actually.
And then there's this thing where it's this kind of down in the muck back and forth, which kind of does seem like what happens in an intellectual battle. It's this sort of back and forth. But I have no reading for the fox,
Between fox
and the
and the
appetitive
appetites.
soul. The only thing I can think of is
She's a fox?
no, the fox is hounded to death. And the idea being that our appetites hound us, that we can't ever get away from them. We have no moment's peace. Our appetites hound us and chase us. That's the only thing I can think of. And the idea that the doe, the stag, that hunt is kind of a noble, valorous. That is the hunt of kings. That's the only correspondence that I can see with the 3 hunts and the 3 tests of the lady corresponding to the tripartite soul.
And there's an escalation in the temptation. He's
Mm-hmm.
more tempted on day 3 than he is on day 1. So is there some connection there? Would we say appetites are stronger than the intellect, or stronger than the spirit or the soul, whatever?
Maybe.
I can see that there's the temptation of spirit. It seems like there's very few direct temptations there except for cowardice, and that most of the temptations to the spirit, i.e., laziness, sloth,
Yeah.
right, acedia, kind of comes via other temptations first.
Gawain's not going to be tempted by being unchivalrous. And then there's then maybe like Gawain, he could be a dopey knight and doesn't really know how to think. But so that's the middle one. And the last one is, all right, he's a man. Is he going to give in to this beautiful lady who is looking radiant and glorious after having, a bunch of days of really getting along with her and being, it comes to mind, like he's not on the hunt with the Lord. It reminds me of David and Bathsheba.
David's not in battle.
David's not in battle.
Yeah.
But he's lounging around at home and he sees this beautiful lady. So there's also a whole Potiphar, Joseph undertones to this whole thing. And of course, Paris and Helen. Paris gives in or doesn't give in. He takes Helen and destroys Troy because of it. Gawain doesn't take the lady, and Camelot isn't destroyed. In fact, Camelot is improved because of Gawain's actions. He comes back with this lesson of here's what Christian knights should be. We should focus on our goodness because we can't be perfect. We're going to be put in situations that we can't win.
So because
I don't know. Are you convinced, Sandberg?
No, not entirely. And it's not because your argument's bad. I think it's pretty compelling. I'm wondering if, because the correlation seems out of order to me, it goes...
Well, out of what? What order should there be?
So it would make sense. I would feel a little bit more apt to give in if it was intellect, spirit, appetite, or appetite, spirit, intellect, because that's moving from outside, inside, or inside, outside, right? It's weird to have it...
That order.
Spirit, intellect, appetite.
Yeah.
That's odd, because it starts in the middle of the person, goes to the core, and then goes to our most peripheral animal habits. It's strange.
I mean, the reason why it's like this in the story is because on that second day, she says, "You forgot what I taught you yesterday, so now you're going to teach me." And so there's like a narrative reason why it's out of order.
So I was wondering if there was another trilogy of things that this would make sense to. For example, the temptations of Christ.
Sure.
What were the 3 temptations of Christ?
The 3 temptations of Christ are: you're hungry, turn these. These are out of order. You're hungry, turn these stones into bread. Here you're at the top of a really tall building. If you throw yourself down, angels are going to make sure you don't get crunched.
And I will give you all you see.
And if you bow down and worship me, I will give you all
the
of
kingdoms.
earth.
Yep.
So I'm not sure there's a correlation there.
No.
I'm trying to think if there's
Other famous 3s.
Yeah, other famous 3s that might fit better with the book.
Can I at least say I appreciate... So what you're trying to get at is what's happening in the temptations, and he is clearly his whole person is being tempted.
Yes.
And that's what you're getting at.
That's what I'm getting at, is that she's going after different aspects of Gawain. One is like the purely base sexual temptation. The other one is...
Pride. She's flattering.
Is
You're
flattering
so smart.
his
Teach
name.
me.
And the other one, she's flattering his name. You are Gawain, the most glorious of all the knights, and I own you. I've captured you. I'm gonna hold you on before a king's ransom, and then you're Gawain, who are filled with stories of valor and love, and you know so much about love. Teach me about love.
So you're so valorous. You're so smart.
And then
you're so sexy.
Yeah.
Are there any? Is there any
I see tripartite soul.
Are there? Yeah, that does make sense. Is there a list of virtues that are tied to the knights? So you mentioned charity. So his charity is tested in that it's attempted to be redefined. Is there any
love
list of
it
three?
Could be. Yeah, it could have to do with the virtues. It's testing each of his virtues. So love, charity, chastity.
So so they could be corresponding to
valor,
causing him to go into deadly sins. So what's the opposite of cowardice? As a charity though.
Oh, you're asking for what the good thing
Sorry,
is?
as a
Courage.
virtue. Courage. And then the middle one would be what? Ignorance? I don't know.
So let's bring up the cardinal virtues here. So we have
faith, hope, love, wisdom, justice, courage, temperance.
This guy.
Chastity, temperance, charity, diligence, patience, kindness, humility. But there's also the classical virtues, which are a little bit different. So there's the three theological virtues.
Faith,
hope, love, and
wisdom, justice, courage, temperance.
Yeah.
That's all I'm asking. If there's another.
I don't know. I don't think it's a faith, hope, love thing. That would be interesting.
No.
Because I do agree with AJ's comment that it seems out of order, but that's, Graham, your point of what should the order be is well taken. But it does seem out of order. But it is his entire person that's being tested. And so, yeah.
Anyway, and then the other... So this
in any case, he's going through some tests that get at every downfall of man, or at least some of the big ones, especially for a Christian knight.
Personally, after having done this book 6 years in a row and reading I'm convinced of it. I'm convinced that the structure is there. And then the other interesting thing that you can do with this book is that there really is this play between, like, letter of the law and spirit of the law, or Gawain and the Green Knight, they look at the act of what happens at the end. And Gawain's conclusion is, I failed. And the Green Knight's conclusion is, you're amazing.
Right.
You're good. And they both know the same story. And they have different conclusions of it. Gawain seems to be working on this, like, this structure of morality of you're either perfect or you've failed. Like you've either made a mistake or you've never made a mistake. And the Green Knight seems to be working on a structure of morality that says, you're way better than anybody I've ever seen. On the spectrum of morality, you are the closest to good that I've ever come across. And so you've got these sort of 2 points of view of looking at a scenario. Gawain's kind of got this more binary, I'm either a perfect knight or I'm a failure of a knight. And the Green Knight has more of a spectrum, you are a really, really, really great knight. And that tension between, I don't think that they're opposite views. I think that they can be complementary views. They're just different ways of looking at our actions in the world. And those kind of, that paradox of holding those two views at the same time, a binary one and a spectrum one, is kind of like the relationship we have as Christians. Like, God has called us to be perfect, be perfect like God is perfect, is a calling on Christians. But then there's also there's this fact that, all have sinned and fallen short of the glory of God, but that doesn't mean that you don't have to work towards goodness. We all should be working towards goodness, even though we cannot achieve that perfection apart from grace, because we deserve to get our heads chopped off, but we haven't got our heads chopped off because of Jesus. So that, in the end, that kind of paradox or that kind of tension that is in the moral world that we as Christians, and therefore we as Christian knights, have, is symbolized in this green belt. And Gawain takes that home, tells the story to Camelot. Camelot says, yep, that's us, and wears the green belt, and are wiser and better for it. So that's why I love the book. Whether or not you, listener, are convinced of the tripartite soul, I teach it
that way.
I do tell his kids that this is not a definitive reading. This is my thoughts on this. Right. I'm convinced that it's here, and here's my defense of it.
Which is how you should write any good literature essay or opinion, right? This is what I think. Here's my defense. That's the work of literature.
And then the student's like, but did the author intend that? And then you can have a different conversation about intent and symbolisms and the fact that, like, when people who write stories are so steeped in in these things that sometimes they can just happen.
There can be unintentional.
There can be these
symbolism.
unintentional symbols, like having things happen in threes is not a a mistake, but but that is just sort of the natural way of doing things. Sure. Anyway, so that's Sir Gawain the Green Knight and the Tripartite Soul, and some sort of ways that you could interpret it. It's a great little story. The kids love it because it's got sexual tension, and it's good.
I wanted to just like we did last week.
Did you find one-star
some
reviews?
one-star reviews of this
Awesome.
one? I found 3. So this one is titled "Hate This Book So Much." Hate this book so much. It's boring and sometimes hard to understand what is going on. Still love J.R.R. Tolkien. I think this one was for the Tolkien translation. But this book that he rewrote from an unknown author isn't so good. 1 star. That's the title of the review. I hate this book.
Great.
That was that whole one.
Great.
And then my favorite is down here. Had to read this for school. It is, and the adjective is a version of a swear. So having to do with excrement.
Yeah.
Oh, it is.
Yeah, that with as an adjective, right? Had to read this book for school. It is that same adjective. But if you are really into the whole knight in shining glory thing, then maybe this is for you. Characters have no dimension and plot is painfully predictable. And there is a comment on this review. Young lady. Semicolon.
This is Graham's.
Oh, no, that's not semicolon. That's just a comment. You should really read more poetry and classical literature, so you'll improve the obvious deficiency you have of the English language, thereby developing much better and much classier adjectives to use when expressing your opinions. And then maybe you'll be taken more seriously.
Ooh.
By the way, you do realize this is a public forum where all ages are welcome, and out of curiosity, do you kiss your mother with that mouth?
There you go.
Which I love. So this has been Classical Stuff You Should Know. That was, thank you, Graham, for Sir Gawain and the Green Knight. You can check out our website at classicalstuff.net. You can email us at classicalstuff@veritasacademy.net. You can tweet at us on the twits at classicalstuff, CLSSCAL stuff.
Yep.
And that's it for us, I think. Any last comments, boys?
No,
that's it.
Just be careful where you go this holiday season.
Yes.
And be
whose house you stay in.
cognizant of the Wooga Chakas.
Yeah, oh my goodness.
And we'll see you next week.
Good words for us all.
Thanks, everybody.
Bye.
Bye.